Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to be talking about Mystery Science Theater 3000 Live, the Great Cheesy Movie Circus Tour. First off, I have to say, seeing this tour, and I already sort of tweeted this, but this show is basically like watching a classic Joel episode. At first, I do sort of buy tickets blindly to Mystery Science Theater tours because I'm sort of like, I'll look at the movie, I'll sort of look at what the tour is, but I'm such a fan, I'm going to see any tour that comes to New York. And this is the Thursday, September 19th show where I did No Resist, No Surrender. I always go to one because I can't spend, tons and tons of money on these things, but I always go. This very much was a classic Joel episode, which I really liked, which you would want from this tour, since this is Joel and the Bots. It's not Joel back in the theater with Jonah and the Bots. Jonah helped write it, but he's not really involved in the performing, I guess. He is involved because he did at least work on it and stuff. The riffs aren't like the new one, so if you don't like the new one, this is actually a great tour for you if you're an older fan and still watch those episodes. The riffing style is more akin to what Joel did, and Mike even, than the Jonah style of, more riffs and faster and everything like that. I'm not against the new show or anything like that. I really like it. But I really enjoyed that because there's something about the kind of comfort of watching a Joel episode. I remember, coming home from school, having a rough day at school, and just sort of vegging out and laughing with it. And I had a long day at work, crazy day. I basically got there right in time, and I was kind of serenaded by Joel playing a slow version of the theme song on a guitar, almost kind of like sing-along style, and I was immediately whisked away to a typical Joel episode. And I loved that. I thought they did an amazing job at replicating the show live. This is like if I saw the show during the peak of the Joel years, basically, and they had a live tour. They never really did that. This is the third tour, like third year in a row, I guess we are on now. And I love every time they did it. And I think it's cool because we didn't, as Mystery Science Theater fans, we didn't have a lot of like meetups. There weren't, the convention only happened twice in Minnesota in the 90s, and I was a kid. And this has been amazing and thrilling, and this was maybe one of the more thrilling ones because the other ones, I understand I'm watching this show out of nostalgia and things like that, but that they were very much children of, or tours of, the new show, and this is really the first tour of the classic Mystery Science Theater, and I thought they did a really good, amazing job replicating that, and I thought Joel did a great job of being Joel, and if that's what you came for, that's exactly what you're gonna get. Now I had my ticket stub, my crappy ticket stub. Yeah, I did see No Resist, No Surrender at the King's Theater, which is a beautiful theater. It was normally at the PlayStation Theater when it was in New York in Times Square, but they went for the King's Theater in Brooklyn, which is amazingly gorgeous and a lot more fun to go to than Times Square. This was interesting in that one thing is the other tours that I had seen, they have a stage area that was basically like the Satellite of Love. They'd go behind it, and then they'd sort of basically do the silhouettes like an episode of Mystery Science Theater. In this, instead of doing that, this time they did it differently, where they had Joel and the Bots on the side of the stage, and then where typically the screen was where it always is, kind of above where they are during sort of the host segments and stuff. That was above the stage, and I actually sort of liked seeing them the whole time. I sort of liked that. I enjoyed that. I thought that gave it a different vibe. I don't know what is going to happen after this tour, or if they'll do another tour with Jonah or whatever, if they'll adopt that, or that's a Joel only, like Joel had full creative control or something like that. I'm not sure. I did like that, and you could kind of fall in with the movie a little more that way, or at least where I was sitting, because I was just sort of focusing on the movie and looking at them, and it was different than just a typical episode, but it gave it kind of that more special vibe to it. Now, this isn't have the same people puppeteering the Bots, and it sort of made a little more sense that you don't have a Baron and Hampton doing Crow and Servo, or Servo and Crow, I should have probably said it that way. On this one, I don't know where this would fall into the canon, but, as Mystery Science Theater fans say, or Misty say, you should really just relax, so I should. But yeah, so I saw No Retreat, No Surrender. They did it as 2 nights, so one night was No Retreat, No Surrender, one was Circus of Horror, instead of doing the double show thing they usually do. I don't know if they did the 2-night thing last time, but every time I saw it, they do 2 shows in a day and you picked one. Or you did both. I don't know if that's working out better for them, but that's what they did. So I saw No Retreat, No Surrender, which was a teen kind of karate movie, sort of starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. I thought at the beginning of watching that movie that it was like he was just in the beginning and they sort of just, re-released it when he was big and made sure the prince said Jean-Claude Van Damme in it. But he's kind of an important part at the beginning and the end of it, so that he probably had a little bit of a following. I don't know the history of Jean-Claude Van Damme very well. But the other one that I didn't see was Circus of Horrors, which seems to be probably what mainly the tour is based on. So it probably made more sense to see Circus of Horrors, but the first one made more sense schedule-wise for me. I guess I could have gone to Friday. I wish I had, because most people I know went to Friday or are going to Friday. But I chose to do that one. In some ways, so the host segments in this are different in that I know that when you saw the other tours, each host segment was kind of, they might have had shared host segments, I'm not sure. But the host segments were sort of different, because are reflective of the movie you're watching and they're riffing on like a typical episode. In this one, they had this circus theme going every host segment. And I'm not trying to talk shit on the tour or anything, but it did sort of feel like they sort of just do the same host segments. It's just the movie has changed. Although the host segments were cool, they did more stuff with puppeteering and stuff like that than they did with the last one. The last ones were more like them talking, doing audience work, and that was fun. But in this, they did more like, puppeteering stuff, obviously, because it's like Joel's tour, kind of. So I'm wondering about that, but I don't know. So I want to talk about the writers of the tour. The writers of the tour were actually Jonah, Tim Ryder, who has been on the previous tours, Rebecca Hansen, who's his wife, who's also been on all the previous tours, Matt Conant, Grant Biacco, I don't know. He is on the tour and he plays. He helped create Emma Waverly, Mary Robinson, Matt McGinnis, Harold Bolchitz or whatever, and Elliot Kalana, who is the head writer on the new show. So it was mainly new show writers. They made references to previous Playhouse, or references I don't think Joel would necessarily make, but it still felt like that vibe, which I thought it was kind of a good marriage between like the kind of references of the newer show, but the speed of Joel, which I did enjoy. There was a bunch of puppeteers like Grant Biacco, I don't know how to say his name. He did Crow with Nate Beagle. It sounded like he was doing I'm not sure which one was doing the voice, but I imagine it's Grant, since he did create Em Waverly. He's been with the show for a while. You had Yvonne Freese, who was both Gypsy and Mega Cynthia or whatever, I guess because she's really tall. The one other kind of human cast member other than Mega Cynthia who was there a little bit was Emily Marsh, who is a puppeteer who's helped with the show, but also she's kind of a maintenance tech person, and she played Emily Crenshaw. I sort of liked her. She didn't interact too much. She seemed kind of funny. She didn't blow me away, but I don't hate her, something like that. And then Connor McGiffin played Tom Servo, because I thought he did a good job. He didn't really stand out for me as Servo necessarily. I thought Crow really held up, and they kind of did different things with Crow, because through the host segments, Crow played a safety inspector against type, but like knowingly talked about how every character needs a character arc, even though it's been 30 years. So that was kind of funny, actually. Him playing a circus safety inspector, I thought was pretty funny. It was kind of the set was not nearly as close as, it didn't feel like I was watching them on the Satellite of Love like the other times, and there was no like recorded messages from cast members or anything like that. But the host segments were good. I don't think they were amazing or anything like that. I thought host segment wise it was a little weaker, but I think a lot of people, and particularly people who do like reviews of Mystery Science Theater, always bring up the riff. The riffing is the most important part, and if the riff works, we're fine. And in that perspective, I was fine. I still like the host segments. I liked everything they did with them. I just don't think they weren't the things I was necessarily thinking about as much as I was thinking about the movie and the riff, frankly. And that movie was hilarious. They have a lot of things with Bruce Lee Ghost, which I think was like a vision from the kid. I don't know how that worked out. The Jean-Claude Van Damme stuff. It was very funny. They were very funny with it. I think there's certain movies that work really well with the kind of natural riffing, and I thought No Retreat, No Surrender really did. It did feel like a movie choice that you'd expect from the newer thing. I guess part of me wishes I had seen the other movie, because that makes more sense for this tour. But I grew up with Jean-Claude Van Damme a little bit, and I was like, I don't know, I'll do this one. It may be fun, but but Circus of Horrors maybe makes more sense. I did get a shirt. This is my shirt from the Watch Out for Snakes tour. I did not get a 30th anniversary shirt, which I now regret. But yeah, so this is the shirt here. Looks pretty cool. They only had it in long sleeve. That's my only regret, because limited options. You'll probably see me wear this in other videos at some point. I would recommend this tour for basically all fans, but particularly ones who grew up with Joel. If you are sitting around, you're like waiting, you don't really like the Netflix show, and you prefer the Joel stuff, and I know there are people who prefer Joel over Mike or Jonah, and that's kind of the be-all, end-all for them, and you're still a fan of the show, this would be a great one for you. If you are not as discriminatory as those people and still like Joel and Mike and Jonah are just fine with anything Mystery Science Theater, this is a great tour because it is a unique tour, and it's something we haven't gotten like seriously since like whenever Mitchell or something. Like it's a crazy cool experience, and while I was watching it I was sort of appreciating it, but I also felt myself kind of like drifting off into remembering in the 90s, like laying on my parents' couch watching a Joel episode. And I think this is like sort of the more nostalgic tour. In some ways I was thinking, despite the fact that last year was the 30th anniversary, it sort of would make sense more for this to be the 30th anniversary. They actually, between the host segments, the kind of tunnel sequences, they started with KTMA was the first one, then they did the Joel era one, then they did the Mike era ones, and then after that they did the Netflix era, so which I thought was really cool. It was cool to see KTMA. I would have been fine with KTMA the whole time, frankly, and just, you know, half KTMA, half Joel era, but I liked that they kind of paid respect to everyone. They made references to, I think, almost every cast member. I mean, they did all the hosts and everything like that. It was a good way for Joel to kind of cap it off. It's not as good as like Mitchell was, frankly, but it was good to see him one last time. He says this is his final tour. He's participated in every tour. I think he's the only person who's done all of them. They didn't say this is the last Mystery Science Theater tour. This is the last Joel tour. But I thought it was a fine way to go out because it reminded me of what made Joel great as a host and what made the original incarnation of that show so great. And I think that this tour did it very well. Now I wanted to talk about one thing that is a spoiler, but that's sort of my review basically. So if you haven't seen the tour and are going to, don't watch this part. It's been years and you're watching this later, I mean, there's not much you can do, so just watch it, I guess, anyway. But yeah, so there was one part at the end that I guess I have questions about, when Joel leaves the Satellite of Love again, and they even make reference, the bots do, that he's leaving again. There's Mike and Jonah and all that stuff. But then he basically says that Emily should be the host. Now I'm sort of wondering what the deal is with that, and I know, you know, they've referenced the possibility of other hosts maybe in other dimensions or something like that, so I'm not sure. I don't think she's officially a new host, because I would think Jonah would do that. I don't know if I necessarily think she's strong enough comedically, because I didn't see anything that made me think that, but you also didn't see her riff, so maybe she's really great. Maybe she has a bigger role and he's like passing the baton. I'm kind of curious if that represented anything or was just a thing on the show and I should just relax, as you say. But I thought that was something to be made note of. But I would like, I know they've said if the show ends, they've thought about just having a live thing, and I'm sort of okay with that. If they did do that, I might actually see both of them, because I'm be hungrier even for content, and I hope they're able to do it again. But anyway, I think still, regardless, it's a great show, and it's another great tour from Mystery Science Theater 3000, and I loved them giving kind of a special tour just for Joel's own stuff. So if you have seen Mystery Science Theater 3000 live, the Great Cheesy Movie Circus tour, and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like.